So ArgoCD running within our cluster. Let's go ahead and do that. K3s, this is our K3s cluster. And we have ArgoCD within. Knows that this directory is now the desired state of our application. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to pull out the desired state. It's going to go and be like, give me your state. Today we are going to be looking at deploying Kubernetes manifests through ArgoCD to our Kubernetes cluster. Now we're going to be looking at specifically customized based Kubernetes manifests. Kubernetes manifests that are generated through Kustomize. And then we are going to make ArgoCD aware of those manifests and deploy them to our cluster. Now this is a three-step process. The first step is setting up ArgoCD. The second step is making sure that Kustomize runs on our project. And then the last step is making ArgoCD aware of those Kustomize files and how to manage it. Now this is quite a manual process, as you can imagine. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can automate that process through GitHub Actions. So if you want to stay up to date with my videos, or if you like this video and this kind of content, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for upcoming videos. Your support would mean a lot to me. This is day 43 of 100 Days of Kubernetes. My name is Anais. Let's get started with the video. Let's look first at what this process is going to look like. What are we actually doing here so it doesn't feel like a black box? Here's our Kubernetes cluster, which is based on K3s, since it's a Sivo Kubernetes cluster. If you're interested in the difference between K3s and KDS, I can do a separate video on that, just let me know. Now on this cluster, I'm going to install, and let's zoom in a bit, I'm going to install ArgoCD. Okay, this is going to run within our cluster. Now separately, I have here my project. And let's do it like this. Here's my application. Now this application is packed up in a Docker file, okay? Docker file, in a Docker container. This is a Docker container. And that runs my application basically. That can run my nice website that this application showcases. Now I want to get, obviously from here, I want to deploy this to my Kubernetes cluster to have access to all of the amazing resources that Kubernetes provides me, right? So how are we going to get it from here, from this point, up over here to that point, right? That's the big question. Now we are going to create Kubernetes manifests, right? And you can write pure YAML files. Pure YAML files that detail everything, but the problem with pure YAML files is that they are usually not dynamic, right? It's usually difficult to update them. So here are the disadvantages of writing pure YAML. So the thing is, with Helm charts, for example, we have benefits such as version control, different app versions, different Helm charts versions that we can reference within the chart, which makes it easier to reference specific versions and update and downgrade our different deployments. Now, if we just deploy the YAML manifest, it's quite a manual process to get it from this point, from our application, pack it up in a container, and reference the container over here. So if this is our container that's referenced, right, it will have a version, it will have a tag usually that specifies which container version or which container this is. There's usually always a new container, right? Now, if we want to update something else within the YAML files between versions, we would have to redeploy the container and so on. Now, that's all good, but the thing is, it's not too easy or it's not too dynamic to update our YAML file within, especially within a CI/CD pipeline. Like we want to automate the process through a CI/CD pipeline, right? Usually, we want to automate for automation, right? This is our goal. Now, pure YAML files make it difficult. So they are static. It's quite static. No referenceable. Is that a word? Referenceable? You know what I mean. No version that you can reference, okay? Even if that's not proper English. Yeah, what else? It's difficult to collaborate on the pure YAML files and so on. So we want to have a bit more dynamic when we create our YAML files. And this dynamic is provided to us by Kustomize files. So we are gonna use Kustomize. Nice. And within Kustomize, so what we basically have for our application, and this is going to be very, very simple for our specific application. We're going to have two YAML files. One is our deployment, and the other one is our service. And this does not fit, so let me change it. Okay, so we have the deployment and the service, and they have obviously different fields, right? There are some fields within here that we want to change maybe, and there are some fields within here we want to change maybe. Now, we're gonna have a third file called Customization YAML, and this Customization YAML file specifies which fields we want to modify and how we want to modify them. So when our CI/CD pipeline updates those fields, we can be assured that all the other fields are left untouched. And if that fails, our deployment will just not change, or our service, our YAML files will just not change. They will just stay the same because the Kustomize was not able to update it. So in the worst case, that will be the case. If we use pure YAML files and we just modify within the pure YAML files, within the entire YAML stack that has all of our other different components, right? It has like everything in here. Let's say there's everything in there, right? How do we know that we managed to update the specific part that we want to update? It doesn't work as easily as if we use Kustomize files. So let's go ahead and jump over to the tutorial, and I'm going to show you how you can set up ArgoCD and then how you can set up Kustomize on your project and use Kustomize, and then how you can make ArgoCD aware of your Kustomize files. I'm quickly going to show you what I'm basing this tutorial off. I have this Notion page where I link all of my tutorials, so my process is basically to write up the tutorial first and then make the video based on that tutorial. So if you're just interested in a tutorial and you prefer the written version, link is below to my Notion page where you can find those tutorials. Now, I've done two videos before, one on GitOps and ArgoCD, that is more focused on the GitOps part of ArgoCD and using ArgoCD with a Helm chart. Check that out, that's linked up there in the corner, that video, so you can check that out too. Second, I've created a video before when I got started with Kustomize and explored it for the first time. That's also linked up there now. So check that out too if you're completely new to Kustomize. I was once completely new to Kustomize as well, and I'm definitely not an expert using Kustomize. There's a lot of things that I can improve and that I'm still learning. So this is basically the first video that I made when I got started. Now, I'm just gonna follow this specific, let's say, tutorial, this write-up that I made here. I have all of the links included, so if there's anything you're missing, anything you would like to have further information on, then please do check that out as well. Now, in my case, I'm going to be using a Civo Kubernetes cluster. Now, you could be using a Minikube kind cluster, anything that you fancy. You don't have to use a Civo Cloud cluster. However, if you sign up to Civo, you will get $250 worth of credit that you can use on any resources on Civo. Now, those are just added to your account. Once you sign up, you provide credit card, and then you have those $250 added to your account. This is not a promotion. It's just a really nice way to have a cluster easily accessible for demo purposes, for your own playground, for using this tutorial and similar. Now, here are the guides on how you can use a kind cluster, for example, how you can create a kind cluster, create with the name ArgoCD. Now, I could do that too. Right now, I'm connected to my Civo Cloud cluster. So, next, we want to install the ArgoCD client. This will allow us to use specific terminal-based commands. Later on in the tutorial, it will make it a lot easier to interact with the CLI versus having to use the UI. Now, ArgoCD also comes with a handy UI, so if you prefer to click buttons, that's completely okay. Check out my previous video that I made, which shows how to set up a project through the UI. Next, we're gonna create a namespace here for ArgoCD, and I'm just gonna follow this tutorial now, and I'm gonna walk you through it in this video. Okay, I'm here on my Kubernetes cluster on Civo, and kubectl get nodes. If I showcase you, I have 3 different nodes that are right now running. They're running since some days now, and kubectl get namespace. As you can see, I don't have an ArgoCD namespace yet. So we want our Kubernetes resources to always live within a namespace. to have it basically separation of concern, which we would call in programming. You want to have all the resources that are related within one namespace. This allows you to make differences between namespaces, to not have resources overlapping or conflicting potentially, and also it allows you to easier remove resources from your cluster. Now we're going to set up our new namespace called ArgoCD. This namespace has now been created. Going back up, as you can see, ArgoCD. Now there's nothing running in there right now, so let's set up ArgoCD in this namespace. This is all based on the ArgoCD documentation. As you can see, there are a bunch of resources that are going to be spun up now. Don't let that scare you. If we go now ahead and we say get all in namespace ArgoCD, we can see that this is everything right now within our namespace, and then we're gonna wait a second for all of the resources to spin up, so make sure that they are running before you move on to the next step. Okay, so now all of my pods are spin up. Next, we want to patch the service and make the service that allows us to access ArgoCD as in the UI through our load balancer. Now, this is obviously something that you would use in a demo environment. In a production environment, you would put an ingress on that service so you can access it through a URL and you can find it in your DNS settings. You would not want to just patch it like this and put it as a type load balancer. Just mentioning it. Next, we want to forward that service to port 8080. Now it's forwarding, and now I want to go ahead and I first need a secret, and the secret is basically defined whenever you set up a new ArgoCD installation. You can query the secret. Now this is just a gibberish output that you can use to then say ArgoCD login, and we're going to log into localhost 8080 because that's where we're port forwarding. Now it's insecure because it's not SSL protected, meaning it's just like, oh, this is not my username is admin and the password is what I just referenced above. You can see it either way. Now I'm logged in. Now I could also go ahead and I could open the UI. I just logged in here through the terminal, so I can use the terminal later on. Now once you open up localhost 8080, you can see here is the UI, and we're going to say admin again, and then we're going to just provide that password again, and we can sign in. Now right now it does not know about any applications, but that's going to change soon. So let's jump over to Kustomize, and I'm going to show you how you can set up Kustomize and make sure that Kustomize runs on your project. Now if you've been following me for some time now, you know that I'm using this React article display, which is basically a basic React project for a lot of my demos. And I'm here on the specific branch called Kustomize. You can find the link below to the repository and to the branch, also linked in the Notion page that I showed you at the beginning, which is linked below. So have a look at that. Now I'm gonna open up this project now. So over here you can see that I have several folders. Now these folders, these two, customization and manifests, are of interest to you. And now the manifests folder should be probably more familiar to you, since that's usually what we call the folder, the directory where we place all of our YAML files. Now, in this manifest folder, we have the deployment YAML file, which is just basically specifying our deployment with our React example app image, container image that's on my Docker Hub. So that's referencing that container registry, Docker Hub, with my image. Now, additionally, I have here my service YAML file that's specifying the service that's going to then connect as a type node port to my deployment. Now I want to dynamically change my deployment, right? So I'm going to create a customization file, and you can have a look at the Kustomize documentation, which is pretty straightforward. It shows you how you can update or specify which sections, which in your YAML files that you want to update, basically. So this is the API version and the kind, which is always needed if you specify any YAML files. And then we're going to specify images. So any images that are referenced within our deployment in this case, then the name of our image. And this is basically, if we go over here, this is the name, and then the image. So going back to Kustomize, so we're gonna name it Anais Urlis, which is my name, my ID to my Docker Hub, and then React example app. And we want to specify a new tag called 2.0.0. Okay, and the resources that I want to reference this to are deployment.yaml and service.yaml. Now in this case, it's not going to affect anything in my service.yaml file since there is no image tag whatsoever. There's no tag that is called image that it could reference in this case, that Kustomize would reference. In the case of my deployment, there's this image tag, right? And if I have multiple images, then I want to specify the name and just like the specific image that I want to update. So it wouldn't just go ahead and update any image. It depends on the name that I provide. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I can show you that I have Kustomize installed. You can install it pretty straightforward with brew install Kustomize. That would be one command. You can also use curl, I think. There are multiple installation options. Link below, and on the Notion page you can find all of the installation options. So if I Kustomize, it provides me with further information how I can use Kustomize. Now if I say Kustomize build, that's usually the command that you use. Now in this case, I want to use the manifests folder, everything that's within the manifest folder, and I will see the customization.yaml file, and this file is needed. It needs to reference this file, otherwise it does not know what to update and how to update the other files, right? So in this case, I want to reference that manifest directory, and then I want to reference that it should update this file over here. Now I've already run this command once. Let's just run it again. Let's just go ahead and run it. If it runs successfully, nothing will happen. Like you won't see any output here in this case. Now we can go ahead and you can go to the manifest.yaml file, and we can see that here my deployment YAML file references the new tag. Now just to show you that this is actually working and I'm not making this up, I can also put the tag back to 1.0.0. I can run the same command in this case. Now let me just refresh it to make sure that Visual Studio Code knows about the change. And now see, this changed. Here's a difference now between what I had before, the 2.0.0, and now the 1.0.0. Now in my case, however, I really want to use the 2.1.0.0. So I'm gonna leave it as it is and just change it back, right? Now you can make all kinds of changes through Kustomize. It doesn't have to be the tag. The tag was just the most straightforward thing I could think of that I then would want to update through a CI/CD pipeline, such as GitHub Actions in the next tutorial. So now once I have this, I want to deploy this manifest YAML file. Before we deploy anything, we want to create a namespace where we can deploy our resources to. Like mentioned in the beginning, we want to have always a namespace for our specific type of resources. So if you have monitoring related resources, we want to have a monitoring namespace. If we have ArgoCD, we want to have ArgoCD live in its own specific namespace. Now I'm going to create a customized namespace where I'm now going to deploy this application, or like tell ArgoCD to deploy this application to, based on the YAML file we just on the manifest.yaml file that we just created. So I'm going to run this. As you can see here, let's break this down. It tells ArgoCD to create an application with the name React app. Now the repository it's referencing is my GitHub repository. Like this is my GitHub repository. You want to have just the main branch, so whatever is on the main branch, just a normal URL. It's GitHub, then your username, then the name of the GitHub repository, and then .git. And the revision, that's where you specify the branch, is in my case Kustomize. I wanted to use the Kustomize branch. I do not want it to use the main branch, since the main branch doesn't have those manifests. Now the path to the manifest that I actually want to deploy is the .customization directory. So anything that's within the customization directory that I just showed you in VS Code, that's going to get deployed. And the destination server is over here. Now this kind of screwed up, so I just have to change this up. And this is the destination server if it's the same cluster where ArgoCD runs. This is going to be the URL. If it's a different cluster that you want to deploy to, so let's say cluster A has ArgoCD and cluster B is where you want to deploy to, you will have to specify this here in the destination server. You can have a look at the ArgoCD documentation on how to do that. And the destination namespace is Kustomize, the namespace that I just created. Now let's go ahead and tell ArgoCD to set this up. Now it tells me application React app created. Now in this case, I can get through the ArgoCD CLI, I can get the status of this React app. This is basically all of the information. Right now it's out of sync. What does it mean if it's out of sync? Going back to the UI, we can see that this is our application that just got deployed, right? Our UI changed in this case. And we can also go ahead, we would have been able to specify the same kind of information through the UI. I just prefer doing it through the CLI. It's good practice. Now, we can say ArgoCD sync, and then we can basically tell it how to sync to that application. How to sync up that application. So basically, right now it knows where the desired state of our application is, which is the GitHub repository. Now it just has to sync with that. And right now it's just, I have to kind of invoke it, and then at some point it's going to check regularly to make sure that the desired state within our GitHub or Git repository is the actual state that's deployed in our cluster. So we're going to say now ArgoCD app and then sync and the name of our application to make sure that it's syncing up. So as you can see, the state is just processed, and here's the service under deployment, and they are both healthy, and the other one is processing right now. So we can go back to our UI, and this is what we will see now. Now clicking into this, we can see that we have our service and our deployment. They are synced now, so the actual state is the desired state specified within Git. And that's basically how I went ahead and deployed my customized resources. Now just a quick recap of what I actually did. First of all, you want to have still your pure YAML in some way, right? You need a starting point YAML file. And then you can tell Kustomize on how to update this YAML file, right? And Kustomize basically specifies the parts that Kustomize specifies the parts that should be updated, like I showed you in the customization.yaml file. And once they are updated, Kustomize is not going to update it straight away in the YAML file. It's basically communicating with it or checking the YAML file. So it's basically pulling out the state. So it's like looking at this repository. Here, let's make it this way around. So this is step 1, yeah? Step 1, when you run Kustomize build, Kustomize has specified within the customization.yaml file which resources it should update, which resources it should look out for. In my case, my deployment.yaml file and my service.yaml file. Now once it knows that, it's going to go ahead and pull out the YAML file. It then compares it with what it has described. Let me just show you. So here, customization. So it's going to go ahead, Kustomize is going to go ahead and check those files, those resources. It's going to pull out the YAML manifests, and it's going to compare it to the information that it has to update. Now then it's going to update the YAML file, update the YAML, and once it has updated the YAML, it would put it into a new directory, okay? This is our updated YAML. New directory. Okay, and in our case, we did not tell ArgoCD about this file. We did not do that. Now, ArgoCD, that's running within our cluster that we saw up here, right? ArgoCD is running with our cluster. We told it about these specific, like this specific new directory. That's what we told ArgoCD about, and that's what we want ArgoCD to deploy. So ArgoCD running within our cluster. Let's go ahead and do that. K3s, this is our K3s cluster, and we have ArgoCD within. Knows that this directory is now the desired state of our application, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to pull out the desired state. It's going to go and be like, give me your state, right? I'm going to deploy it. And we told it to deploy to the namespace Kustomize. So it's going to go ahead and it's going to deploy those resources to this namespace. Now we can go ahead and we can check the namespace, right? So kubectl get namespace, and we can see here's our Kustomize namespace. So kubectl get all in namespace Kustomize, right? And we can now see here our deployed application. Now I can do a port forward to this. So kubectl port forward, and in namespace Kustomize, and we want to port forward, well, 800 to port 8080 because 8080 is already taken from ArgoCD. So we're gonna port forward. So if I go back and I go to localhost 8000, here's our deployed application, and it's managed by ArgoCD. Now, going back to ArgoCD, I can see the state of my application and whether the resources that are related to my application are actually healthy and the correlation between those resources, if I want to do that. Now, obviously, this was the manual process, so in the next video, I'm going to show you how you can use GitHub Actions to automate this process. Now, I hope this was useful for you. If it was and you would like to see similar content from across the DevOps space, maybe consider subscribing to my newsletter, linked below. It goes out on a weekly basis, right to your inbox, with content by amazing people such as yourself. Also, make sure to join the community chat, linked below. There are a bunch of amazing people who are on a learning journey, who are either just starting out or in a process of advancing their skills and becoming more technical or diving into different areas within the DevOps space, such as Kubernetes, such as infrastructure management, or similar. Links are below. Also, I would highly appreciate your support by subscribing to my channel and hitting the like button, so make sure other people see that content as well. Also, if you're really into my content, you love what I'm producing and would like to see more and more of the content that I don't necessarily put out on my channels because it's either thoughts or rough drafts or similar, or it just doesn't fit on my channel, then subscribe to the paid version of my newsletter, of my blog, and you will get access to all of that kind of content as well. I really hope to see you in one of my upcoming videos. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.